So I'm Paula from KUNTSQUAD and
Nick.
Nick from KUNTSQUAD.
From KUNTSQUAD.
Lead guitarist, new lead guitarist.
Right.
And yeah, because and you know me, I've been around forever.
Yeah, how could anyone not know you guys? Thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers. So KUNTSQUAD recently released your second album, Satan's Cock. So how's the early reception been for it?
Quite positive, got to say. It's been really well received. I think people are a bit surprised, I suppose, that it's how like heavy it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's been so far so good. Like we've not had any sort of negative reviews actually, but one was a bit interesting in the sense that I don't know, I can't even remember that one, but again, yeah, overwhelmingly positive. So you know, like all the radio stations, particularly you know PBS, Triple R, and you know Interstate, overseas podcasts, like we've had a fair bit of attention based on the release or since it's come out. A lot of streams and hits on Spotify, and basically I think you know this time round the Americans have jumped on board, which is really interesting because we didn't get much of like American interest last time with the first release, but this time it seems to be quite yeah, it's like whatever, it's touched something over there.
Yeah, that's
so,
enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny because I'm not dyslexic at all, but while I was typing these questions up, the amount of times I put Santa's cock into Satan's cock,
or
it was
Stan
amazing.
or Saturn.
So tell us a bit more about the album. You sort of touched on the heaviness of it before, but go into a bit more depth musically with the album, what you were going for.
Well, I think it was a concerted effort. We took a lot more time this time to actually finish it, and to, you know, when we started the recording, which is probably 2 years, more than 2 years now, the intention was to like do 4 songs. We put 4 songs down and it sounded like crap, and we thought, nah, got to start again. And then we had some dramas, you know, our engineer also had some issues, Jason. So long story short, basically we started again, we wrote some more songs, down-tuned again, and just to get it right, because the last release was a bit, we weren't expecting a record deal, to be honest, so it was done in a very rushed way. So this time round, we took a lot more time, really, you know, did a bit of a critical review and, you know, where we were kind of going with it, and just kind of solidified what we'd already been doing, but it just needed to be more direct because not everyone sort of got it.
Yeah.
But this time it was, yeah, a lot more sort of measured in how we did it. So, yeah.
Nice. And to date, you've released the singles Satan's Cock and Psychotropic Life. So if that's all someone's heard of the album, is that a good sonic representation or does it just touch the surface?
I think, what do you think, Nick?
Yeah, they're pretty good songs. All the songs on the album are good. Yeah, and they're all in the same sort of attitude and style. So yeah, if you like one, you're going to like the rest. Definitely.
Yeah, it's like I think, you know, it does those songs. Satan's Cock's quite simple. It was only one message in that. It's about consumerism, if that people didn't get it, but which is really important to watch the video which accompanies those songs when they're out, because it gives you more clues as to what it's about. But in terms of like the structure of that song, like Satan's Cock itself, I mean, the idea was derived through actually Nick and I were hanging out. Maybe you can tell the story, Nick, but essentially it's also a comedy skit by Bill Hicks, who's quite a dark man. He was around, but he's passed away. But a lot of the samples that we use in the records, basically, you know, from him. And yeah, so we thought it was quite fitting because he kind of represents what we actually feel in terms of that area, anyway. But apart from that, like you can see, I don't know, if you've listened to it, you'll realise that there are some things that have held true, and that is that it's still quite crusty in the sense that the message we deliver and the construct of the songs are very much that, but sonically it's just death metal. So it's you know, everything that it was before but taken to the next level and a little bit more streamlined. So yeah, those songs pretty much represent, you know, where we're heading in our evolution.
And even if you don't get it, like the message is sort of like secondary. Yeah, like if you dig the music, then dig the music. But yeah, it's not really, you know, huge on messages, but the messages that are there, you know, sort of the stuff we stand by.
Yeah, cool. Now, you sort of touched on this a little bit, but the press release says that one of the band's core ideologies is to ensure every release is different progression from the previous. So
Yep.
can you elaborate on that and how you actually go about doing that?
Yeah, well, I think in terms of production, in terms of the songwriting, I like a challenge. So I'm not one person that like sits on their hands and go, oh, you know, we did that last time, it was good and we should do more of the same. I like to challenge myself. I like to challenge the guys in the band. So I always try and think of, you know, more new and interesting ways to, you know, go about writing and, you know, construct the end result of the construct, which, you know, is different in some way. Like for me, it is organic. I don't like to sit there and none of us sit there and go, oh, what should we do to sound like this?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that for me. It's mainly like what it's always been in terms of how I write the song. So I'll come in with a basic outline of, you know, the song and what I think it, you know, how it should be. And then it's worked on so that the rest of the band has input on how, you know, parts of it. For example, in this this recording here, we'd gone in and put those tracks down, and then decided in the studio we needed more there, like bits and pieces. So it's kind of like that in the sense that you listen to it and go, oh, it could have been done better like this, yeah. And you then do it. And unfortunately, this time it was kind of part of it was in the studio, which is what you don't really want when you're, you know, playing for time. So, but that's what, you know, that's how it kind of evolved. So that's what I mean by that. I don't like to reproduce the same song over and over again. Like some bands, you know, they hit that formula and they just do that. And for me, it's like, no, I want to keep people guessing as to where it's going.
Yeah. So along those lines, like how does Satan's Cock differ musically to your debut self-titled debut album?
This one's a far more consistent album overall. Like the first one, I wasn't in the band for the first one, but I was a fan and I listened to it a fair bit, and they were all great songs and it was a great album. But from like a booking and promoting sort of perspective, it was hard to sort of I guess label it or categorize it. Like the songs differed vastly because they were sort of from vastly different backgrounds when they were written. Whereas this album, like, it's pretty much consistent from start to finish. It sort of ends the same way it starts.
Yeah, and I think Nick's right. Like we needed to when we're doing a bit of an evaluation of where we were and where we wanted to kind of go and head in terms of musical direction. Like all of us have been into heavy music forever. Like it's not something new, but what is new is that the progression part of it, that's the challenge part of it. You know, forcing yourself to play things that, you know, you haven't played before, or the construct being different to what it was before. So for this time, if you compare the first record, it had more of a crusty punk feel in some songs, and others were heavy as fuck. So it's kind of like, well, where do we want to go with this? We kind of need to sort of be on board with it. And we did have some issues in terms of direction within the band, and therefore some personnel changes. Also, having said that, people know that Steve passed away, which, you know, is not none of us were expecting that. But there was a bit of conflict in terms of where we were kind of going, where Steve wanted to do more of the same, whereas I'm like pushing him to sort of, you know, move on and, you know, challenge himself. But he was not in a physical nor, I think, mental state to be able to actually do that, to be honest. And sadly, when he did leave the band, we got the news like several months later that he'd passed, but not to be unexpected, but also unexpected. So in terms of the band and its songwriting and the direction, it is more solidified in terms of where we're going. And that is because of the challenge. We kind of like dropped down again. We'd already been in drop tuning for since the first day, but this one, it warranted even more so, that heaviness. We wanted to really, because live, if you've ever seen us live, you would know that what's live, and most bands would say this, I'd say, the live performance is far more brutal than you're ever going to really capture on record. And sometimes it's the other way around, but for us, it's always been like that. And so it's forever trying to chase that, which is, how can we best represent, the heaviness of the band, capture that, in a moment in time, which is essentially what every band does when they record. A moment in time, that's what it is. So moving through, there were some changes to our tuning. There were some changes to, just the way, I constructed the songs, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how, it kind of progressed and how it's kind of evolved from that point A.
So a bit further to that, like, your music blends many forms of metal. It draws from death metal, black extreme, there's blackened metal, there's blast beats in there.
Yeah.
Like, is it difficult to get the balance right in the creative process? Because it's a lot you're bringing together there.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's a combination of, like everybody, you listen to a whole bunch of things, and I do all the time. And when you write, it's hard because you don't want to go, oh, well, that sounds like this band, or that sounds like that band. But when you do write, subconsciously, I think you do draw on your influences. So, I mean, I listen to all forms of metal, including deathcore, which people really, seems to have a bad reputation. I like, different bands in the different genres. So for me, I'm not a gatekeeper. I don't like that attitude of people saying, oh, that's not purely black, or that's not purely death metal, and that's not purely whatever. I don't care. Like, for me, music shouldn't have boundaries, and with respect to that. So I try to, when I write, it's a concerted effort to try and be original in the way it's put together. And if you look at a lot of the bands that have, overseas, Japan, everywhere, actually, there's a lot more blending of those metal styles. And I think that's actually a good thing, because it means the genre moves on and you're not listening to the same old, format or style all the time. So, and I say this all the time, I mean, who needs another Slayer? We have Slayer, for example. I don't, as much as I love all of that, there's so many bands, for example, that sound like Slayer, and that's great for them if that's what they want to do. For me, it's never been about fitting into any particular style or mindset or process of metal. For me, my tastes in metal are pretty actually broad. So
it's a pretty honest sounding record, in the sense that everybody who played on it has brought a bit of who they are as well, and
right.
and everybody's playing what they do best, really. So there's a bit of everyone in there, and that's probably why it's there's so many sounds, because we're all old bastards, and we've all listened to a lot of music, but like, you can, if people know the individuals in the band, you can sort of recognize the contribution.
Yeah, and I think, with Nick coming from very much a black metal sort of background in terms of his playing and bands, I know you could talk about that, but I mean, there's that definite flavour. Mind you that the song construct is what it was and always will, has always been, but there's no denying that the style the person, any person, brings into the band is going to influence its overall flavour. So when we recorded Satan's Cock, it was pretty much all the rhythm was kind of done, and bits and pieces were done. And so when Nick turned up, because he was in Brisbane.
I came in, and the record had been recorded, basically. And they were just waiting for me to lay down my solos and stuff and slap those down. But I play vastly differently to the way Steve used to play. And what he did was great on the last record, but I've got just a more chaotic sense of lead guitar, I think. I just wanted to bring to it all those things that just sort of really got me going. And when I was sort of learning music and a young fella getting into it, and you hear those crazy fucking leads that you know, Slayer and Deicide were doing and shit. And you just go, oh, fuck yeah. So you just try and grab all the stuff that you love the most and the stuff that, you know, sort of impressed you the most, and see if you can just sort of pass it down through the fucking generations.
Yeah, and I think from if you listen to Piss and Purge, which is a good example of Nick's work, when he first like put that down, that chaotic sort of, and it's so that first song is very contrasting in it's really chunky first bit, and then you've got this chaos that kind of ensues in the second part where Nick does his. That's an example of his input, and also the chaos, which is really like, I love the fact that it's so contrasting. For me, it epitomizes what I stand for in terms of, you know, the way a song should be. Should keep people guessing, like, and also, you know, the style, like Nick mentioned, and so all of the positioning of the leading parts, more or less, was his decision, Nick's decision in terms of how it should sound and what it should be, and it is a lot more chaotic, but when I say chaotic, not in a bad way, but in a good way, in the sense that I don't think his lead breaks are not typical of you know, what we were doing, nor I don't, you know, like Nick said.
That said, though, on more than one occasion, I was asked to dial it back a little bit.
That was by the engineer, mind you. So we had a few the issue, because it is quite in your face, actually. So
but yeah, everybody sort of brings their own sort of flavor to the album, I guess. Yeah,
nice. Now you've got a spaced out run of shows coming up too, with 2 in Perth in September. You got 3 in and around Melbourne in October.
Yep.
Canberra and Sydney in November.
And so they're part of this. So we're going to be officially launching the CD in Perth, the first date of the tour, and that is in September. 2 days, I think it's 17th, 18th, and basically that will all ages show. That's where where it starts, and then from there we do the Melbourne shows. We've got one at the Bendy, one in Bendigo, and they will also be launches, etc. We're going to go to Tassie, Sydney, obviously probably Brisbane again, and do all of that. So we have. I'm going to put up all that. I freaking lose track of everything that's going on. So I actually asked Michael, who manages us from Black Ruse, actually, So can you put something together, because I'm losing track of everything, which I am actually. So so that's where it starts. It starts from, you know, as of September and goes on through there.
Where's the best place for people to find out more information and find out what dates?
Yep. So on the socials, we have our Facebook and Instagram profiles. We have Bandcamp page where, you know, occasionally things pop up. But the best place is probably the obvious ones, which is Facebook and Instagram, to keep an update on, you know, keep track of what's going on. Like me, I have a look at my own posts and go, oh,
that's where I'm supposed to be tonight. All right, guys. Well, thanks very much for your time. Been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks.
Shannon's Cock is out now.
Awesome.
Best of luck with the tour. We'll catch you when you come to Brisbane.